All right, we're continuing what we learned yesterday, and a speech that the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave in 1992, Tafshin Nun Beit, which was, and shortly thereafter, he had a stroke, and this stroke made it impossible for him to speak. He wasn't able to speak. So this is the last time that the Rebbe spoke to all of his shluchim, all of his emissaries. Like we said last time, Chabad has thousands of emissaries all over the world. The Rebbe has inspired all these people to go out and save the world, right? Abraham began, and the Rebbe is finishing it. Abraham began to try to impress on the world the importance of God, that God is creating everything, God is enlivening everything, God gives everyone purpose, God gives everything meaning, God is the whole secret of really being happy in this world, to be brave, to be meaningful, to be caring, to have love, to have genuine values in this world. God. Without God, everyone's selfish. They worship idols, they worship this, they're thinking about themselves. So Abraham went around and he broke all these idols. Stop being selfish. You have a creator, he's creating you. Show a little gratitude. Don't be an ingrate. God's creating you, he's enlivening you. Well, it didn't go so good for Abraham, as far as his goal. It says that Abram was an Ivri. And how many Jews were there? How many Jews did he actually make? Well, it says that when Jacob went down to Egypt, right, Yaakov, when there was the big, famine, we'll learn about that. So he only took his family. That only Jews were just his family. So it seems that Abraham didn't have any really lasting effect as far as Judaism goes. And it says that all the religions of the East, they also were an outcome of Abraham's recognizing of God. So they sort of got it wrong over there a little bit. So, but nevertheless, Abraham laid the seed. He put the seed down. Then he was called the father of all mankind, Av Hamon Goyim. And who took this banner up to be, how do you say, if you want to call it opposed, to defy all mankind, and not just to defy them, but to defy their desire to be separate from God, to transform all mankind. So all human beings only worship and recognize and connect to and love their creator. And the creator knows what he's doing. He gives us eyeballs. You can't make an eyeball. You make an eyeball. You can make an ear, the eardrum? No, right? You can use, maybe they have artificial ones nowadays. Could be. But you can't bring life into a person. You can't make life. Can't give a person a new brain, whatever. God creates billions, trillions of brains and all these little amoebas and things. God, and Abraham is just saying, listen, give God a little bit of credit. And he's leaving all these amoebas and he's creating you. And he's creating you all the time. So do it. So not too many people got this message, but the leaders of Chabad did, especially the Rebbe. And that's called the Moshiach. Moshiach is a person that simply wants to educate the whole world about what God is and what his Torah is. It's not that difficult. If you think about it, God is creating everybody. And the only time God ever revealed himself to in a way that is at least, verifiable, was when he gave the Torah. Gave it to all the other religions. You can verify that God spoke to this guy or whatever, the founder of this religion or that religion, right? You can verify it. So how many people saw God? God, he came out of the desert and he said, I had a revelation. Here we have 3 million people that saw the Torah. Okay, so that's pretty good, that's pretty valuable, but the Jews themselves don't even believe it. So the job of Mashiach is to bring the Jews back to their senses. And from that, the whole world will come back to their senses. That's the job of the Jews. So let's say the Lubavitcher Rebbe is the Mashiach is, pretty healthy, normal thing to say. Especially the Rambam says that everybody should be waiting for Mashiach, and if you don't wait for Mashiach, then you're denying the whole Torah, so nobody wants to do that. So the Rebbe inspired a lot of people to go to do the same job, the job of Abraham. And they're called the shluchim of the Rebbe, the emissaries of the Rebbe. But the main shliach, the ultimate one, is the Mashiach himself. He's the shliach of God. He's the emissary of God. And he's going to show everyone that they're all emissaries of God, everyone, even the non-Jews. But until then, it has to get little by little. People have to decide that their how do you say, fidelity and their connection is to the creator of the universe through the Torah. So the Rebbe has all these emissaries that are devoted, heart and soul, to this goal of bringing Mashiach. And once a year, they get together. And here, this is the last time that the Rebbe spoke to them, but this is a message for all times. And the Rebbe is just reminding all of his emissaries, because the world is very tricky and very, very confusing. And these emissaries have to be very deeply involved in the world. They have to make Chabad houses, and they have big debts, and they have a lot of wages to pay, and they have to make sure that there's electricity and food, and they have to make a good impression on the mayor of the city, and they have to educate children, and they have to talk to the parents, and they have this. So they have a million things going on, and they can. It's possible that they can a little bit, how do you say, get separated from their true goal, which is to bring Mashiach, and their only goal, which is to bring Mashiach. And the purpose that they're even there is to bring Mashiach. And the whole reason that they wake up every day in the morning is only to bring Mashiach. That's it. And just so that it doesn't become too, esoteric or whatever it is, so the Rebbe says very clearly that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe is the Mashiach. And the Rebbe said that he is just he's just a continuation of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. But the Mashiach is certainly going to be a person, and he's going to be a person just exactly like the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe or this Lubavitcher Rebbe, or we can say it is the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Why? You don't have to go far away. But if you want to go far away, so good. But at least you have to be concerned with Mashiach every moment, and that Mashiach should come. Not that the commandment is not to believe in Mashiach, and when he comes, we'll be disappointed, we'll be deprived of a commandment. No. The fact of the matter is, when Mashiach comes, we'll have to have more faith in Mashiach than before. What's the proof? The Rebbe is the Mashiach, and there's people that don't believe it. You have to, right? When Mashiach actually reveals, then you're going to have to really have a lot of faith to believe in Mashiach. That's the Mashiach. So that's the job of Chabad in general, and of the Shaluchim specifically. The Yuvan said this will be understood. This will be understood. This will be understood by preceding a general explanation. What is shlichus? What does it mean to be an emissary? Where do we get this idea of being an emissary? Right? Do things on your own. When you have to send someone else to do it for you. He says, no. Sending other people to do your job is a very, very important thing. Let's start off. The first shlichus we have in the Torah is in this week's Torah portion. What does it say in this week's Torah portion? And in fact, it says in tremendous detail, which is totally not understood, why there has to be such a big detail, of Abraham sending his servant Eliezer to find a shidduch, to find a bride for his son Yitzchak. But often in the way that Eliezer, now you can read this over in English, get yourself a Bible, read the story in English, and you'll see that it's a very strange story because it repeats itself over twice, 3 times in great length. And the Torah is very, very, how do you say, terse, very economical in its words. It doesn't like to waste words. And here it seemingly wastes whole paragraphs of it. So it's, of course, it's, God forbid, it's not wasting. But the still question is why. So let's see. So this week's Torah portion talks about how Eliezer, the servant of Abraham, was sent on a mission. He was the emissary, he was the representative of Abraham to find a daughter for his son. But often in the way, Eliezer, in the way that Eliezer did it afterwards, Bepol, and how Eliezer actually did it. And to make the marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka. Yesh makom lachkor, we can make a sort of an investigation over here. Maya Geter Vadin, what exactly was the, how do you say, categorize this shlichus, this fact that Eliezer was a representative of Abraham? What does it mean it was a representative? What does it mean? He could do whatever he wanted to, right? Abraham just gave him a open check, said, write whatever you want, do whatever you want. Or no, maybe he had to do a specific thing. Let's see. He said to take a wife for my son, for Yitzchak. Yesh la perish. We can say that in many ways. Number one, Eliezer, he was a shliach, he was an emissary for just one thing. To marry his son, like it says in the Tosfos, that an emissary of a person is like that person. In other words, the law is, let's say, for instance, I want to marry a woman. Someone wants to marry a woman. I don't want my wife to hear this. Somebody wants to marry a woman, right? Shmerel wants to get married. So Shmerel, he finds out there's a lady over somewhere, and he sends his good friend Beryl, and he gives him money, and he says, go to this lady, her name is Rivka, and ask her if she wants to marry me, show her a picture of me, and if she says yes, then give her the money, then they're married. The law is in Judaism that in order to marry a woman, you have to give her money, or you have to give her a bill. You have to give her something. You have to give her money, you have to give her something that's valuable, or a deed, a document of marriage. You have to give her something. Do I have to give it, or can my emissary give it? Says my emissary can give it. Shliach shalarim kamoso. My emissary of a person is like the person. And also in the category of what is a shliach, there's also a lot of different levels. There's one, the maisa shliach, who ka maisa mashaleach. There's one, if he does something, it says though the person who sent it, right? Shmerel wants to get married. So he sends Beryl, and when Beryl gives the money to Rivka, then she's married to Shmerel, to the one who sent him. There's even more. Gam koach asiya shel shliach hu komoto the mashliach. The power of deed, and is whatever he does is like the person who sent him, and even more. Kol kulo shel shliach, that the emissary himself is the person who sent him. Ad kamoto mao, that he is actually that person. In other words, I am a clone, if you want to call it, not just a clone. I am, so in this case, Beryl becomes Shmerel. Whatever Beryl does, it's as though that Shmerel does it, right? So Beryl wants to go into a store and buy himself some clothes. He can put it on, it's just charge it to Shmerel. Shmerel is the one who sent me everything. Eliezer, what was it? Okay, or that's number one. Eliezer was a shliach. He was an emissary. Or maybe we'll say no. Eliezer was definitely not a shliach. Eliezer was not an emissary. He was a shadchan. He was a matchmaker. His job was just the one thing. Limso ishal Yitzchak, to find a wife. When he found her, she was not married yet. Or afilu shadchan l'kadsha. Even though that the matchmaker, he has the ability, he can finalize the marriage. It's not the same power as if he was an emissary. An emissary is in the place of the person who sends him, which is not the case with a matchmaker. The matchmaker, we don't say that the matchmaker of a person is like the person. Exactly the opposite. A matchmaker is not like the person. He is just a third figure. He gets paid a wage that he is doing a favor for somebody else, like a mailman or something, right? A mailman brings me a letter, right? He brings me a letter from my father. I haven't seen my father. I don't kiss the mailman. Oh, thank you, right? Thank you, Dad. I appreciate it. What are you talking about? You're nuts. I'm just a mailman. I'm just bringing this letter to you. I don't even know who sent it. Got nothing to do. That's a shadchan. A shadchan is a middleman. He's impersonal. He has no connection to the person who sent him, and no connection to the person who he's sent to. He's just kavisha, like we could say, that's how the world is, right? If a mail, you go to buy a car, you have a salesman. The salesman is not the the car manufacturer, and he certainly is not you. He's in the middle. The same thing. That's what. So what exactly was? How do we exactly define what the what exactly Eliezer was in regarding to Abraham? Was Eliezer a shliach? Somehow or other, he was Abraham, either Abraham's hand, Abraham's power, or was he just a worker? He just was a worker. He was sent to do a certain job, and he did the job. He gets paid for it, and he's totally impersonal. What is it? Yesh Svor Lomar, we can say that Eliezer was not a shliach of Avram. He wasn't lo haya k'shliach kamoto, like him. Ella kametzios nifradet. He was a separate entity in himself. Eliezer, he was like a servant. He was a paid worker. Kafi shemashma, like it says in this match between Yitzchak and Rivka. Mizesha Eliezer hoya machazer lemitzvah limtzo ila sheyomer l'Avram lifnos elav lasiu bito. It says that Eliezer was trying to find a reason, that he was trying to find, how do you say, an excuse that Abraham should marry his daughter. Eliezer also had a daughter. And Eliezer was a faithful servant of Abraham. He was brave, he was intelligent, he was strong. He wasn't a Jew. But who was a Jew in those days? Who was a Jew? There was Abraham and his wife, and that's it. Right? Who was Jewish? And Yitzchak, Abraham's son. There was no other Jews in the world. The thing is, though, that Abraham had a brother, Nahor, and that brother had a son called Bethuel, and this Bethuel had a son, and there came Bethuel, right? And Bethuel gave birth to Rivka, right? So Rivka, so he was sort of in the family of Abraham. He was in the family, and Eliezer wasn't in the family. But Eliezer, with a personality like that, you'll never find, right? He was loyal, he was brave, he was intelligent, he was everything. So it says that Eliezer, as soon as he saw that Abraham wanted to marry off his son, and he knew very good who Eliezer was, Yitzchak was. This is a real match. And also, he knew that Abraham knew who he was. So Eliezer, he had a daughter, and he was trying to find maybe somehow or other he could put his daughter in there. And the whole thing. Omer lo Avram said to Eliezer, Beni Baruch, va'ata arur, my son is blessed, and you are not blessed, right? I made a covenant with God, and you didn't. Ein arur medabek b'baruch, says one who is not blessed can be clinging to one who is blessed. The word arur really means to be cursed, but he wasn't cursing him in the sense of that. He was saying that you're part of the world and I'm part of God, and part of the world cannot be part of God. Well, Befrat, especially in the story. But nevertheless, Eliezer, he wanted his daughter to marry Avram. So we see that he was trying to change Abraham's mind. He wasn't exactly a shliach where he was, just like a robot or whatever, doing whatever Abraham said, had no will of his own. No, we saw he did have a will of his own. So this shows how that Eliezer himself, he had to make a big effort in order to find the shidduch that's fixed Yitzchak. So Eliezer had to pray himself to God, and he had to clarify, and he had to make us a sign who was going to be Rivka. So we see that a lot of what Eliezer did had nothing to do with Abraham. First of all, he tried to dissuade Abraham from sending him at all. He said, listen, I'm right here. My daughter's right here. What do you have to send me? And then when Abraham said, no, that's not what I want. So he said, okay, I'll go 100%, no problem. But then when he went, he had to do all these things that Abraham didn't request him to do, right? He had the very difficult things. He could have just said, listen, I'm this, God will send me somebody. That's all, right? God will send me someone to make it easy. He'll send some here. Why did he even have to travel, right? God could have sent them somebody right there. So nevertheless, he said, made all these efforts. That's read in the Torah portion, you'll see that he had to make all sorts of signs and this. And also in the whole thing, it did come with big miracles. That Abraham said, "Lo tikach eisha libni," don't take any for my son a wife from the Benota Kanani. Go to my land and to my birthplace. And Abraham didn't tell him anymore. Lo piret mi alav lekadesh. Abraham didn't say, "Hey, go and find Rivka." Abraham knew, he sensed that it was Rivka, but he didn't tell him that. So it could have been that Eliezer would have said, Eliezer could have done another thing. What he could have done, he could have brought back a woman that was totally not fit, right? Totally not fit. He could have done it. And he could have said, listen, this is the best I could find. And maybe Abraham would say, okay, you know what? Okay, we'll give him your daughter. Okay. If you can't find it, no. Eliezer, he went and he did all these things on his own, and he made up his own criteria and how he's going to find the girl and etc. So therefore, this seems to indicate that he was just like a matchmaker. He was just like a go-between, a go-between. Like somebody says, listen, I want you to buy me a new sports car, something I really like. What you like? I don't know. Bring me something else. So he has to go around and search and find that. But on the other hand, Eliezer, Eliezer, it says he was the elder of Abraham's house, and he ruled over everything that Abraham had. Shemoshel b'Toras Rabo. What does it mean? He ruled that he knew all of the teachings of Abraham. It says that this is he was domestic Eliezer. It says domestic. Rashi says over there that it was Mashak, that he domestic dola, that he lifted up and he gave others from the teachings of Abraham. The Eved Avraham, he was a servant of Abraham. What does it mean? Eved Melech. It says the servant of a king is a king. Gam also became Divrei Avraham. V'lakachet Isha ben Yitzchak Kayim Eliezer. He did it exactly what Abraham wanted. So one second. On one hand, we can say that Eliezer, he was just a job. He was doing a job. He was a matchmaker. Abraham appointed him to be a matchmaker. He had several jobs. Right? He was a warrior. He was this. Now you're being a matchmaker. He was just a matchmaker. It was impersonal. Or we can say no, that he was a emissary, a Shaliach. And he was totally united with Abraham. He didn't do anything on his own. Even Abraham made him swear. He made him swear. It says on Abraham's loins, on Abraham's brit, the circumcision. He said you have to swear, right? Because the circumcision was the only commandment of God that was physically in the world. He said he made him swear. In other words, we say that no, he was not just an impartial and impersonal matchmaker, but he was a shliach. He was an emissary. Yesh Lomer, we can also say, Shadavar said that this thing that Eliezer, he was an emissary. Move on also for what it says. Vayikacha Eved Asara Gamalim Gamalei Adanav Vayilech V'Kol Tuv Adanav Biyado. It says that he took 10 camels and all of the good things of his father he took. The Meforshim, the commentaries explain that Eliezer had in his hand Kol Tuv Adanav, all of them, everything, all the possessions of Abraham he signed over. And that Abraham gave it to Eliezer, and he said, you can do whatever you want to. Whatever, I'm giving you take all my money, all my possessions, bring back a wife for my son. You can do whatever you want to with the money. If with the money you have to rent out an army, a train, whatever it is, whatever you have to do with the money, you don't have to request any permission from me. I'm giving you full. If so, confusion, like it says, that he ruled over everything. Eliezer ruled over everything. Even if you want to say that Rashi, that the Shtar Matana, that he gave this open check was given to Yitzchak, everything, in order that people would want to marry him. Hari Avram Masar Tashtar, but nevertheless he gave this to Eliezer. Even if you want to say that this check was not made out to Eliezer, but it was made out to Yitzchak, but Abraham for sure gave it to Eliezer. In a way, sheish koach, that he has the power, he could rip it up or whatever he wanted to. Kach kol asher lo, everything he had, Yitzchak, it was in the possession of Eliezer. So if so, Eliezer, Abraham's servant, was not just a matchmaker. So there's reasons to say he was just a matchmaker, because it seems that he was separate and thinking about himself. On the other hand, we can say no, that Abraham gave everything to Lichior at first glance. How could Abraham give everything he had to a person that he had a little bit of doubt what he would do with it? So from this, we can see that Eliezer, he was totally devoted to Abraham. He was a servant. And therefore, when he sent him to do the shidduch for his son, he was he was not just a matchmaker, that he was a separate entity in himself and he was thinking about his own benefit. But Shaliach, he was an emissary, he was a representative. That all of his being is Mitziut Shaliach, is the one who sent it. And therefore, Avram was able to give him everything that he owned without any doubts whatsoever. Okay, so what is it? Was Eliezer a matchmaker and he was thinking about his own benefit? He just wanted to do the job as good as possible, right? So the customer would be pleased. In this case, the customer was Abraham. And there's reason to say that, yes, he was just a matchmaker, because we see he made a lot of decisions on his own, did a lot of things, and he tried to convince Abraham to take his own daughter for Abraham's son, to dissuade Abraham. That's on one hand. But on the other hand, we see that he was totally devoted to Abraham. He was like Abraham's right hand. Well, whatever he did was what Abraham wanted. Abraham gave him all of his possessions, put it all into his. What's going on over here? It says a beer, but the explanation we can understand by another question, a klotz kasha. Klotz kasha means like an obvious question. What does it say? That Abraham, he was very rich. It says Abraham was rich. And he wrote a deed, a document, stating that everything that he had belonged to Yitzchak. It says, let's ask a question about this. Even regarding to, why did he give everything to Yitzchak, to his son? So that when Eliezer found a suitable match, so he'd say, you want to get married to my master's son? Look at this. She'd say, wow, this is Abraham. I heard of him. He's tremendously, wow, look at this. He's everything is giving to his son, and this is going to be my husband. He's going to have everything. He owned everything. Oh, I'll jump on it. The potential bride to be would jump, be excited, and she would agree to marry Yitzchak. So therefore, he wrote everything that he had. Obviously, the obvious question: what did he have to write everything for? Write $1 million. How much money did Abraham have? $1 billion. Write $500 million. He has to give everything. Even regarding to the mitzvah of tzedakah, it's a law that the olam lo yakdish adam, a person should not sanctify, bring to the temple, or he shouldn't yachrim, or he should never give away for charity all that he owns. But also and anyone who does this, overall data katuv, it goes against the Torah. It says mikol asher lo, that you have to give for charity from that which you have. And it doesn't say give everything you have. How can it possibly be that Abraham gave everything he had to Yitzchak? Everything. He left himself a pauper of nothing. Even if he gave Az Yerusha, even if he would write it as a inheritance, Gam Az Lo Yamuban, it wouldn't be understandable. Alachas kama v'kama, how much more so? Even if he wrote and he said, listen, everything I own is going to go to my son, Yitzhak, it's going to be from now. That's also, you don't do things like that. You don't do from now. After I die. But okay, that at least inheritance you do, but in order to make his future bride willing, even if he didn't give everything, he just gave a lot. Abraham was tremendously rich. It would have been enough. Women would have jumped to get married to him, right? So he didn't give all the $1 billion that he had. He only gave 1 million. Who wouldn't want to get married to somebody that had 1 million? Well, Befrat, especially that Avram was, at that time when he sent Yitzchak, he was 140 years old. When he took Yitzchak to the sacrifice, he was 137. And now this is 3 years after that. It says that Yitzchak was 3 years up in heaven. Anyway, it was 140 years old. As V'chai, and he lived many years, right? He was 140 years old. How was he old when he died? He was 175. So he had another 35 years to live. So he could have used his money at that time. Maybe he wanted to buy once in a while, a pickle or something. He had nothing, no money. He had to have something, leave something on his own. Leave for himself, $100 in the bank, something. He gave everything to Yitzchak. Why? So that the Rivka would be happy with less than that. But Penimis Inyan, it says that he Nitan Haya Leva'er. Maybe we could explain like this, like what it says, Yitzchak ben Avram. Avram related Yitzchak. That Yitzchak was the son of Abraham. Abraham gave birth to Yitzchak. Omer, the rabbis say, Cluster Panav Shel Yitzchak, says that the appearance of the face of Yitzchak was exactly similar to his father, Abraham. People were saying that Abraham was already old. He was already 100 years old. Sarah was already old, 90 years old. She couldn't give birth to this. Maybe Abraham had relations with somebody from the field, or maybe somebody. Yes. Anyway, they were saying Abraham and Sarah weren't the parents. So God made a miracle that Yitzchak's face looked exactly like Avram. So because the face was like that, also in the soul, and also in the service of God. They were one thing. It was one continuation. Like it says, the fathers, they are a merkava. Both of them were vehicles to bring godliness into the world. They were examples, living examples of what God wants a person to do and to look like and to act, right? That other people could take their example. And even more than that, by means of their deeds, they actually united the creator with the creation, like in the Holy Temple. So their faces were similar. Well, maybe that's the reason that Abraham gave everything to his son, to show that his son was totally him. Good, says Abaladayan. Nevertheless, that's a nice explanation, but it doesn't explain according to Nigla, according to the law. The laws of the Torah are binding even back then. The laws of the Torah, not to the degree they are now, but it says that Abraham knew the whole Torah before it was given. So according to the Torah, you're not supposed to give away all that you have to anybody. You're not supposed to do it. And not only that, he didn't have to. Why did he do it? In order to impress this future bride. He could have given him half of what he had. Why did he give away everything? It says the explanation is like this. The marriage of Yitzchak, we're going to continue tomorrow. The marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka, this is the first marriage that's actually written in the Torah. It's not just an individual between two individual people, but this is a whole general topic. They brought a whole new visitation of godliness into the world. This is the first marriage between Am Yehudi, the Jewish people. This is the first marriage, in the Jewish people. This is after Abraham made the circumcision. And even more, by means of this, there is made and drawn down to all of the Jewish people for all the generations. In other words, in addition to the fact that this individual specific marriage between Yitzchak and Rivka, which happened, 4,000 years ago, something, this also is indication for the marriage of all of the Jewish people, for all of the generations that are going to come. The marriage of Yitzchak is every Jewish man and every Jewish woman that gets married. This is an example in the future. And we'll talk about also the Jewish people are also the wife of God, and God is the groom. It also shows on that marriage, but that we're going to talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Now let's do the Yom Yom for today. Yom. Here we go. The birth, today was the birthday of the fifth Rebbe of Chabad, Shalom Dvar, in the year 1860, 5621. In 1860. He was named, like now, right? That's right. He was married he was named after the second Rebbe of Chabad, Dvar, and half of the name of the Tzemach Tzedek's father, Shalom Shachna. Every year, my father, this is the previous Rebbe speaking, these are sayings by the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rebbe Yosef Yitzchak, and he was bringing a saying from his father, who is the Rebbe whose birthday we're celebrating, the Rebbe Shalom Dvar. Every year, my father would say a mimer on his birthday, but he did it secretly, except when it coincided with Shabbat. On his last birthday here in the world, he said the mimer, Natata li'orecha nes noses. I've given those who fear a flag to wave. When he said, on one's birthday, a person should say Chasidut. May God give you as a gift that you should say Chasidut on your birthday, but it should be with kindness and mercy. It took 7 years for this to happen. Why? Because he passed away in 1920. The Rebbe Rashab, Shalom Dovber, the father of the previous Rebbe, he passed away in 1920. In 1927, the previous Rebbe was put into prison. And this was after 7 years, the communists came in. The communists really took over Russia. They consolidated their power about 1920, right? The Russian Revolution was 1917, etc. But they really started consolidating their power in 1920. And the Rebbe Rashab said that he hasn't got the power to stand against. It's too evil. Communism is too evil. And in fact, they killed tens of millions of people, Stalin. And they tried to destroy all of Judaism. And number one enemy was the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. They called the Chabad movement, they called them Schneersinskis. He actually indicated, after the name Schneerson, he actually taught people, educated people with a theory, a method that was opposite of communism, Judaism. Anyway, he was put into prison and he was tortured, and miraculously he was released 7 years later. That's what he says here. Let's see this here. It says, this is the festival of can I get into this thing? Oh, here it is. Of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe from a Soviet imprisonment for spreading Torah. This was on his birthday. He got released. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe got released on his birthday. He said you should say Chasidut on your birthday. On his birthday, which is the 12th of Tammuz, in 1972. And he was evicted from Russia shortly thereafter. In his 7th year as the Rebbe, he was a Rebbe 7 years. He took over in 1920 when his father passed away. Good. So it says you should say Chasidut on your birthday with a way of happiness, kindness, and mercy. And when there was a kindness and mercy, the whole 7 years that he was Rebbe in Russia, it was all difficulties. And Stalin was killing people. He was killing Hasidim right and left. And there's tremendous difficulties. And who made the difficulties, by the way? Jews. And a lot of them were Chabad, had been Chabad. Of course, they left Judaism, called the Yevtechtia. And in the end, Stalin killed all of them also. Anyway, to end on a good note the previous Rebbe did get out of Russia, and Russia fell, communism fell, and Chabad is growing and growing. And God willing, everyone will wake up and bring Mashiach. Now, we'll meet again at 3:00 in the afternoon. Shalom uvracha. Have a good day. Wonderful. Here we go.